America's best days are yet to come. That's because conservatives like you know and live the values our great country was built on. The Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard in the D.C. swamp each day, shining the light on a bright future. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values and won't give up the fight because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. You know, America, thank you for being here. We're going to cut through all the crap. All the media crap, all the press release crap, all the chest-beating crap. Yesterday, in the morning in Jerusalem, a bus full of commuters, 2 Palestinian terrorists got on the bus with automatic weapons and shot everybody they could, killing 6, wounding 21. Hamas took credit for this. They took credit for it. And, in fact, it's very public out there, the statement that Hamas put out. We congratulate the qualitative, heroic operation carried out by 2 Palestinian resistance fighters at the junction of the Ramat settlement north of occupied Jerusalem. We affirm that this operation is a natural response to the occupation's crimes and the genocide war it's waging against our people. It is a clear message that it plans to occupy and destroy the city of Gaza and desecrate Al-Aqsa Mosque will not pass without punishment. Nobody's talking about desecrating any mosque, Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now, the leaders are basically in 2 countries of Hamas, Turkey and Qatar. Turkey and Qatar. Now, we've spent years explaining here, behind this microphone, and on Fox and on Blaze, that Qatar is a terror state. It is a terrorist state. It was the biggest funder of Hamas. That Hamas's leadership has been given safe haven in Qatar for decades. And they are billionaires. Some of them have moved to Turkey, where they're protected. The administration claims Turkey as an ally and Qatar as an ally. The prior administration, Turkey ally, Qatar ally. KSM, the mastermind behind 9/11, and that anniversary is coming up on Thursday, I remind you, was given safe haven in Qatar by the Qatari royal family before the 9/11 attack. He was on the FBI's list as a grave danger. The FBI was on his trail. The Qatari royal family gave him an apartment, a job so he'd have money. It was a phony job, but money. And then when our FBI informed Qatar that we were going to come into that country and seize KSM, they helped him escape from where he plotted 9/11. Many of the riots and violence you've seen in our colleges and streets, many of the organizations have been funded directly and indirectly by Qatar. The anti-American and anti-Semitic movements on our college campuses have been funded most prominently by Qatar. Qatar also buys up sporting events and sporting teams. They buy up businesses. They buy up politicians, former politicians, as lobbyists. They pay off the loans of certain individuals and buy up their bad notes. And they spend an enormous amount of money in this country buying up business influence, political influence in both parties, and trying to come off as sort of a Western Arab country. It's nothing of the sort. Qatar has given aid and comfort to the Taliban. Qatar has given support to the Muslim Brotherhood. Qatar wants the overthrow of the West. It's called Tafiyah. We've talked about Tafiyah. Giving the impression that it is among us when it is the enemy within. I've been watching the news reports, including on friendly newscasts, and not a single one of them mentioned that Qatar was giving safe harbor to the Hamas terrorist leaders. It mentioned that Israel had targeted them, but it never mentioned that Qatar had protected them. And Qatar funded Hamas more than any other country. More than any other country. Including October 7th. You must ask yourself over the years, both the Republican and Democrat administrations, how can such a hideous monarchy be considered an ally? They're a mediator, don't you know? They're trying to bring back the Israeli hostages. Well, they've done a damn poor job of it. But they're playing both sides. And everybody knows it. They're telling Hamas to resist while they're putting out public statements, telling our State Department that they're doing everything they can to convince Hamas. Why are the leaders of Hamas in Qatar? Why are they there? Netanyahu has upset the negotiations. Qatar attacked a bus filled with Israelis in Jerusalem in the morning. I should say Hamas did, while they're based in Qatar. What of that? Now, I'm hearing something else that's very precious. Qatar is a sovereign country. How dare you try and kill these terrorist leaders in a sovereign country? Pakistan is a sovereign country. Then I hear, well, Qatar is an ally. Pakistan is an ally. Did we not send special forces into Pakistan to take out Osama bin Laden while he was being protected by the Pakistani military? The answer is yes, we did. I don't remember any talk about Pakistan being a sovereign country. How ridiculous is that? How preposterous is that? And then we're told that we are negotiating a defense arrangement with Qatar. A defense arrangement with Qatar? We already have a base there for some insane reason. But a defense arrangement with Qatar? Well, have we told Qatar no more funding of terrorism? Have we told Qatar no more support for Hamas? Have we told Qatar to give up the leadership of Hamas and turn them over so they can be prosecuted for war crimes? Have we told Qatar to stop trying to destroy the state of Israel? Have we told them to stop funding Marxist Islamist forces in the United States that seek to overthrow our country? Then we can talk about a defense agreement. But none of that's on the table. None of it. None of it. This is a bipartisan problem. Let me ask you a question, ladies and gentlemen. Let me ask you a question. And by the way, Hamas has murdered Americans. They have American blood on their hands. They have Israeli blood on their hands. They have a lot of blood on their hands. And so does Qatar. Qatar's 9/11 blood on its hands. How quickly we dismiss what happened on 9/11. I wonder what the 9/11 families think of Qatar and Saudi Arabia. Two fantastic countries. They just want peace. That's all, just peace. I wonder about the firefighters, the police officers and their unions and their foundations. I wonder about the families, the people who went to work in those two towers. I wonder about the families of the individuals who went on a flight and the terrorists took over the plane that Captain Burlingame was in charge of when they murdered him in the cockpit and then flew it into the Pentagon. I wonder what those families think. I wonder what the families think whose members were murdered, who fought heroically in central Pennsylvania. What do they think about Qatar giving protection to KSM? The day that the Israelis play victim is long over. I heard one reporter say Israel's opened yet an eighth front, another front. Israel's opened another front. Hamas, their leadership is in Doha, Qatar, for all to see. And they order another attack on the Israelis in Jerusalem, in the middle of Jerusalem on a bus. Let me ask you a question. If Qatar were protecting Hamas leadership, and Hamas leadership had ordered a slaughter of Americans on a bus in Washington, D.C., which has been federalized, would we stand still for that and say, wait a minute, they're in Qatar, it's a sovereign country, we don't want to open up another front? Of course not. We would find that leadership, and we would do exactly what the Israelis did, or attempt to anyway. So we gave the Qataris a heads up. So the question is, did the Qataris give the Hamas leaders a heads up? It's a question being asked by everybody who's got common sense in this. Did our allies, the Qataris, tell the leading terrorists of Hamas, just like the Qataris, when the FBI told them we wanted KSM, helped him escape, did Qatar help the Hamas leaders escape death? Did they or didn't they? It's a simple question. I haven't heard that in the news media either. Friendly news media and the usual hateful news media. Haven't heard a word about that. Did they or didn't they? The Qataris should have turned them over to us or the Israelis or somebody a long time ago as war criminals. I don't want to hear this sovereign country crap when we went into Pakistan, and we should have. I don't want to hear this ally crap. They're no ally. Pakistan's an ally, but we went in there anyway. So I don't want to hear that crap. And we will fight here behind this microphone against any military defense arrangement with Qatar until Qatar ceases to be a terrorist state funding terrorism, funding Marxism, Islamism, and the overthrow of our country and our universities and many of these front groups, and until it stops working with the Taliban. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. There's a lot I don't comprehend about this Qatar stuff. I really don't. I've got report after report. I've used it here. I've used it elsewhere. The billions and billions of dollars this country's pouring into terrorism around the world. Terrorism that has affected us directly, killed thousands of Americans. How they're trying to overthrow the West and our country with these front groups. I don't care how many golf leagues they're involved in. I don't care how many sporting events. I don't care how many businesses they buy, how many politicians they buy, like Jim Moran and the rest of them. And he's not alone. He's just one. He's just one. And they're mediating. Now think about this for 2 minutes. They're the mediators, they in Egypt, but they're the primary mediators between Israel and Hamas when they've been funding Hamas to slaughter Israelis. Now, does that make sense? Is that what we would do? Is that what we would do? Would we go to the Taliban and ask them to be mediators for us in a matter? Does that make sense to anybody? No, it doesn't make any sense. This whole thing doesn't make any sense. So basically, the leadership of Hamas is immunized, is protected. They can order as many hits on Israel, as many slaughter of Israeli citizens as they want. But whatever you do, don't kill them because they're hiding and protected in Qatar. Our ally, don't you know? We'll be right back. We're coming upon the 250th birthday of the United States, and it has me thinking, what will America look like 250 years from now? My friends at the Heritage Foundation want to know what you think. What policies should America prioritize? What principles should carry us into the decades ahead? As America enters a new golden age, Heritage recognizes that this is the time to take stock and to be intentional about how we shape the future of America. And they can't do it without your input. So please go to heritage.org/LEVIN and let them know what you think is important. Without patriots like you stepping up and speaking up for what you believe in, America as we know it can't survive for another 250 years. Please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN. Take the survey on America's future future. This survey takes less than 10 minutes to complete, but it is critical for making sure that the America we pass on to future generations is an America we're proud of. Go to heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
The new American Revolution starts here. The Mark Levin Show. Call in at 877-381-3811.
I'm telling you, the reporting is so sickening. I agree 100% with those calling on Qatar to immediately turn over the Hamas leaders they are protecting to our government for prosecution of war crimes against our citizens and others. I mean, truth be told, they should be surrendering to us for what they did to us on 9/11. But I agree with those calling on Qatar to immediately turn over the Hamas leaders they are protecting to our government for prosecution of war crimes against our citizens and others. These are the modern-day Nazis. Now, our country and others pursued the Nazis to the end of the earth to hold them accountable, to prosecute them. I expect none of that from Europe. Europe has been conquered. Europe embraces the modern-day Nazis, the Islamists, the terrorists. You and I, we do not. We do not. I don't expect the Qatarelsons of the world to agree with us, but they're irrelevancies. They're a gnats on an elephant's ass. So I'm talking about this with real Americans, patriotic Americans. I join those calling on Qatar, which is funding terrorism, which is funding Hamas, allied with the Taliban, funding the radical anti-American, anti-Semitism movement in our own country, funding Mondani's mother for years with millions of dollars. I call on Qatar, and that we pressure Qatar to immediately turn over these Hamas leaders, if any survived, if Qatar didn't protect them when they were tipped off. The Qatari government funded them, protected them, and I am calling on us to pressure them, on them to give us these Hamas leaders to be prosecuted by our Attorney General at the behest of our Secretary of State for war crimes against our citizens. They have killed American citizens. They have taken American citizens hostage, as well as our ally Israel and other allies whose citizens they've taken and killed. Now, why shouldn't that be done? Oh, I'm sorry they were hit in their sovereign territory, their sovereign country. Every country is sovereign. They were hit not because they're a sovereign country, but because they protect the Hamas leadership, which is still putting out orders to commit acts of terrorism. If the Israelis had not been attacked again yesterday in their capital, then there wouldn't have been a targeted hit in Qatar against Hamas. And I repeat, can you imagine if Qatar was harboring Hamas leadership or something akin to that, and they gave the order to slaughter Americans in public transportation in Washington, D.C., on a bus, when the bus is full of American and of citizens and others? You can't go after their leaders in Qatar. Qatar's a sovereign country. And then here's this moron reporter tonight say, and Israel has opened up another front. Israel was just attacked by that front. We all are well aware of this. We all are well aware of this. Benjamin Netanyahu at the embassy event in Jerusalem today. This embassy event in Jerusalem today was at the American Embassy, sponsored by our wonderful ambassador, Mike Huckabee. It was a delay of the Americans in Israel and the Israelis celebrating July 4th, our Independence Day, obviously, which was delayed because of the war with Iran. And the Prime Minister wanted to be very much involved, is my understanding. And he was there. And this is what he said. Cut one, go.
At noon today, I convened the heads of Israel's security organizations and authorized a surgical precision strike on the terrorist chiefs of Hamas. These are the same terrorist chiefs who planned, launched, and celebrated the horrific massacres of October 7th. The burning of babies, over 250 hostages, innocent hostages, grandmothers, grandchildren, Holocaust survivors. They perpetrated the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Now, they were meeting in the same place, exactly the same, where they celebrated this savagery almost 2 years ago. At the beginning of the war, I promised that Israel would reach those who perpetrated this horror. And today, Israel and I have kept that promise. Now, much of the world, including much of the democratic world, or governments at least, have shamefully forgotten October 7th. But I don't forget, and Israel will never forget. There was a time when Jews could be murdered with impunity, but since the founding of the State of Israel, those days are over. On this day, as in previous days, Israel acted wholly independently, and we take full responsibility for this action.
And what he clearly is saying there, and I have no inside information, no, I have not talked to anybody. The president, the prime minister, the ambassador, my stepson, nobody. And I don't. He's saying there, if you're going to attack somebody for this, I'm the prime minister of Israel, you can attack me. Carolyn Levitt at the White House briefing today. Cut two, go.
This morning, the Trump administration was notified by the United States military that as Israel was attacking Hamas, which very unfortunately was located in a section of Doha, the capital of Qatar.
Okay, hold on. So what did we say to Qatar about the leadership of Hamas being unfortunately located in their capital? Did we say anything? Like, what are they doing there? What are the leaders of Hamas, these monsters who still control these hostages? What are they doing in your capital? Doesn't sound like we did. Go ahead.
Inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States.
Well, you know what? So was Pakistan when we killed bin Laden. A sovereign nation and close ally of the United States, and we didn't tell the Pakistani government or military because the Pakistani government was protecting bin Laden just like the Qataris are protecting Hamas. Go ahead.
Working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace does not advance Israel or America's goals. However, eliminating Hamas, who have profited off the misery of those living in Gaza, is a worthy goal.
How about eliminating Hamas's leaders who are in charge? Is that a worthy goal? And if it's a worthy goal, why does Qatar protect them? Why hasn't Qatar turned them over to the United States for prosecution of the murder of American citizens? I think these are common sense questions, and not a single reporter in that room raised one. Not one. Go ahead.
Immediately directed Special Envoy Witkoff to inform the Qataris of the impending attack, which he did.
So when Witkoff informed the Qataris of the impending attack, what did the Qataris do? What did they do with the Hamas leadership? Did they tip them off like the way they did KSM to strike another day, which he did horribly on 9/11? What happened to the Hamas leaders when the Qataris were tipped off? Isn't that an important question, Mr. Producer? I would think. Is anybody curious about that? Go ahead.
Views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly.
But it's not a strong ally and friend of Israel. They've been funding Hamas to kill Israelis, to destroy Israel, and they've been protecting the leaders of Hamas, who continue, even during these quote-unquote negotiations, to direct terrorist acts against Israel. So they're not an ally, a friend of the state of Israel, are they? Go ahead.
And
I would question whether a friend or ally of ours, since they're funding much of the mayhem at our colleges and universities and the propaganda, even through K through 12 now, billions and billions of dollars in our colleges and university. You know, they're not like a philanthropic organization, a charity that's just giving us money because they love our schools. They're an ally? Go ahead.
President Trump wants all of the hostages in Gaza and the bodies of the dead released. And
you know who can get them out? Qatar. Qatar helped create Hamas, funded Hamas, strategized with Hamas. They're bravely the mediators. It seemed to me that Qatar could get those hostages out if they were really serious about it. They're playing both sides. We all know it. Everybody knows it. Go ahead.
To end now. President Trump also spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu after the attack. The Prime Minister told President Trump that he wants to make peace, and quickly. President Trump believes this unfortunate incident could serve as an opportunity for peace. The president also spoke to
here's the thing. In my humble opinion, if it can serve as an opportunity for peace, it's not that unfortunate, is it, Mr. Producer? We shall see. Go ahead.
Prime Minister of Qatar and thanked them for their support and friendship to our country. He assured them that such a thing will not happen again on their soil.
To be clear, the president disagrees with the location of the strike and that he passed that along to Prime Minister Netanyahu.
See, this is the best the reporters can do. Attack Israel and Netanyahu. They were just attacked. You know, America, we saw something horrific on that bus in Charlotte, North Carolina, where that goon stabbed that young lady to death in broad daylight on that bus. And we are rightly furious about this. Furious about this. What the hell happened? How can this happen? Criticizing the governor, criticizing the mayor. They all deserve it. Criticizing the press. What a joke. What a joke. Here you have a bus in Jerusalem, the capital of Israel, people minding their own business, two Palestinian terrorists at the direction of the Hamas leadership, which is based in Qatar, directing them to go on the bus with true automatic weapons and slaughter as many human beings as possible. You have a boss who gives their families pensions, $400 a month for the rest of their life. And you have Hamas, the leadership, that is protected by Qatar. And apparently the Israelis, Netanyahu, the prime minister, is supposed to sit on his hands and woe is me. We bring the National Guard into Washington, D.C. because we've had enough of this domestic crime, haven't we? We try and export criminals that come into our country illegally, and we should. We back ICE, we back the National Guard. We are disgusted by weak-on-crime mayors and city councils, by Soros prosecutors and activist judges. We are disgusted by what they're doing to our country. Can you imagine if a foreign country was harboring terrorists that slaughtered our people. And attacked a bus in Washington, D.C., and then the response is, well, you can't touch them because it's a sovereign country and they're an ally. I have no reason to understand why Qatar is an ally. None. When it is funding the overthrow of the United States of America. Oh, it can fund, department stores like it does, and sports teams like it does, and events like it does, and contribute, believe it or not, to the Medal of Honor Museum, $5 million. This is a facade. Because the West doesn't understand these people. I do. I do. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. For decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. Now here's Jack Reed, crazy-ass Democrat, senator from Rhode Island. Listen to this guy. Cut 3, go.
This attack was extraordinarily disruptive of whatever peace process, even one that was very faltering. I think it was a signal by Netanyahu that he really does not want an agreement with
Folks,
Hamas.
Israel was attacked by a terrorist attack from Hamas out of Doha, Qatar, yesterday. And this dumbass is going on about how Netanyahu doesn't want peace, he doesn't want an agreement. So they're supposed to negotiate with these leaders who are in Doha, Qatar mediating along with the Egyptians, pretend this didn't happen, and just keep negotiating rather than taking these guys out for the terrorists there. Am I losing my mind, Mr. Producer? What the hell's going on here? We wouldn't put up with this for 2 seconds, nor should we. I've never seen anything like this in my life. This jackass, Jack Reed, he doesn't even know what's going on. Oh, it's worse. We got Brennan. We've got the media. We've got other Democrats. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Look what he did. He disrupted the peace negotiation. They just murdered 6 and wounded 21 in a terrorist attack. Orders given by Hamas. The leaders are in Qatar. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Welcome back, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. You know, the more we learn about Iryna Zaruska, the more upsetting this is. This young lady was working at a pizza parlor. This young lady was volunteering to help older people. This young lady was known to help care for animals in the community. 23 years old. She had a brother and a sister, a mother and a father. And she loved America. She loved the country. And the U.S. Attorney in North Carolina said that when the Ukrainian embassy contacted them to bring her body back for burial, the parents said, no, she loved America. She's going to be buried in the United States of America. There are evil people in this world. This killer is a subhuman to do what he did. 3 stabs to the neck. Murdered her right there, sitting there. I think it was a train, sitting on the train, minding her own business, with her earbuds in, and after a long day of working for a living. A model citizen. All these people who are murdered have a story. The Democrats talk about statistics, the murder rates going down here or there, and number one, they usually lie about the stats, but number two, they dehumanize the situation. Dehumanize it. Just like we dehumanize what took place yesterday in Jerusalem, and dehumanize October 7th, which is so horrendous there's not a news outlet in America that will play it to show you it. This Iryna Zaruska, she had to know she was dying. She had to be shocked, like, what the hell just happened? And why would this person do this to me? As her last thoughts. And probably in her mind, calling out to her parents. But he stabbed her in the throat, in the neck, 3 times. Full power. And then she slumped over and died, fell out of her seat. Remember the case on the New York subway, Mr. Producer, where a woman was burned to death? Just sitting there, minding her own business, hadn't even talked to anybody? Burned to death. Burned to death. Here's President Trump in a video message today about Iryna Zaruska. Cut 7, go.
For far too long, Americans have been forced to put up with Democrat-run cities that set loose savage, bloodthirsty criminals to prey on innocent people. Really very, very innocent people. In every place, they control radical left judges, politicians, and activists. And they've adopted a policy of catch and release for thugs and killers. In Charlotte, North Carolina, we saw the results of these policies when a 23-year-old woman who came here from Ukraine met her bloody end on a public train. And here's a picture of it. This is the picture of it. And this is a picture of the woman, a beautiful young girl that never had problems in life, with a magnificent future in this country. And now she's dead. She was slaughtered by a deranged monster who was roaming free after 14 prior arrests. We cannot allow a depraved criminal element of violent repeat offenders to continue spreading destruction and death throughout our country. We have to respond with force and strength. We have to be vicious just like they are. It's the only thing they understand. 24 of the top 25 most dangerous cities in America are run by Democrat mayors. 50 people were murdered in Chicago in recent weeks, with hundreds being shot. And it's time to stop this madness. The people of our country need to insist on protection, safety, law, and order. We have proven that it can be done because we did it right here in D.C., in District of Columbia. The capital of America was a bloodthirsty, horrible, dangerous place, one of the worst. And now it's a crime-free city, and we're going to keep it that way. It can be done. It can happen fast. All we want is, please, Mr. President, we need help. Chicago needs help. Other cities need help. We'll do what has to be done because we're going to make America safe again. And that includes our big cities. We're going to make those cities safe. Thank you.
Very important. So crucial. And I'm thinking about, it's just on my mind what's going on. Don't the Israelis have the same right, Mr. Producer? To make sure their cities are safe? To be as tough as their killers? And the idea that Qatar is harboring their killers is just sickening. Just unbelievable to me. That there's literally no pressure from anybody on Qatar to turn them over. I want to know what happened to those leaders of Hamas when Qatar was tipped off. I want to know what happened. I want to know if there's an immediate person in the world that's going to ask that question. Any. Every human being has a story. Statistics are one thing. But these people are dead forever. Some of them in horrendous ways. Taken hostages, starved to death, brutally murdered on a train, for God's sakes, on a bus. It is sickening. Carolyn Levitt at the White House briefing today. Cut 8, go.
This is pure evil on full display. The most enraging and unacceptable part of this story is that her death was entirely preventable. DeCarlos Brown never should have been on that train that night. In fact, he should have been behind bars. DeCarlos Brown has been charged with crimes no fewer than 14 times, dating back to 2011, including for armed robbery, felony larceny, breaking and entering, and shoplifting. Brown had previously served 5 years in prison for a robbery with a deadly weapon charge, and he had also forfeited bonds 3 different times, twice in 2014 and once in 2023. Despite all of this past documented criminal history, when Brown was arrested yet again in January of this past year, a Democrat judge, who I will add was a strong supporter of former Vice President Kamala Harris, released this insane criminal once again without requiring him to pay any bail. He simply had to sign a written promise to return for his court hearing. Think about how crazy it is to ask a career criminal, someone who by definition repeatedly breaks the law, to just sign a written promise and come back again another day. This is madness. This monster should have been locked up, and Iryna should still be alive.
100%. Hakeem Jeffries at a press conference yesterday asked about crime. Let's see what he has to say. Cut 9, go.
Democrats right now are being pounded by Republicans about cities within your states, New York City, Baltimore, Los Angeles, about situations that are happening right now, whereas you're talking about a situation that happened 4 years ago where an unarmed protester was shot and killed by a Capitol Hill police officer with his own records.
What outlet are you from?
The Washington Times. So I'm curious here, hold on a second, why is it that Democrats don't want to hold that particular Capitol Hill police officer with any sort of accountability, yet as far as the cities in which the states that you're from, you don't want to deal with the crime that's actually going on in your own states? And Mr. Raskin, you're
Is there a question there?
No, Mr. Raskin, you're laughing, but a woman was just killed in your state, and you don't want to address that either.
Yeah, I'm not going to address the ad hominem foolishness.
It's not ad hominem. It was actually a great question. You're attacking cops everywhere, but that cop in particular, because he killed a veteran protester, you celebrate. You celebrate. I think that's a great question. Go ahead.
Articulated. But what I will say very clearly is that we have, as Democrats, been very clear that we're going to support local law enforcement.
You're a liar. You haven't been clear you're supporting local law enforcement. You oppose local law enforcement. Unless you're one of these whack job chiefs that you cherry pick to put in charge. But the fact of the matter is the rank and file cops can't stand you people. And for good damn reason. Because you don't have their backs. And it's a friggin' dangerous job. You haven't been clear in your support for law enforcement. I love it when many of these Democrat mayors say, the Fed should give us more money so we can hire more cops, while they're cutting the budgets and cutting the number of cops. The Fed should give you more money? Go ahead.
Which includes law enforcement on January 6th, the NYPD, the Chicago Police Department, the Metropolitan Police Department, and do what is necessary to help them do their job. No, you're not doing what you've never done what's necessary to help cops do their job. You try to take immunity away from them. You have thinned out their numbers. You've discouraged new applicants by your own conduct. You're pushing to elect a guy in New York who hates cops, wants to eliminate information on gangs. This is their idea. Wants to eliminate misdemeanors. This is all over the country. What's going on here? All over the country. Nobody's fooled by this. Nobody. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
When was the last time you bragged about your wireless company? Like, did you know my wireless company gave away 1,000 American flags to deserving vets and forgave $10 million in veteran debt? Did you know my wireless company raised almost $500,000 to help prevent veteran suicide? In other words, when your wireless company is Pure Talk, there's a whole lot to brag about. You can even brag about the coverage you get with Pure Talk, a 5G network that is insanely fast, dependable, and secure. And you can definitely brag about how much money you save with Pure Talk. Unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Just $25 a month, saving the average family over $1,000 a year. It's time to switch to my favorite wireless company, Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin and save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, puretalk.com/LEVIN. Make the switch today. Pure Talk. Wireless worth bragging about. The great Tom Homan was on with Sacco and Vanzetti, Mika and Joe on the Morning Schmo this morning on MSLSD. This guy is unbelievable. Cut 10, go.
I'd love some transparency as to why a lot of these people have been disappeared. You say you have data. We would love to see it. The American people should see this data.
Well, here's the rhetoric again, right? You just meant disappeared. That is a ridiculous thing to say.
Why?
Because ICE is doing the same thing we've done for decades. But because of the last 4 years, ICE wasn't allowed to enforce the law. ICE was told to sit back, and you can't arrest an illegal alien for simply being here illegally. You got to wait till they commit a serious crime and get convicted of that crime. That's what Secretary Mayorkas' instructions were. And that's why you saw there's so much crime in this country coming from the illegal alien population, because there's no law enforcement. But we're doing the same thing right now that we did when I started back in 1984. ICE agents are enforcing the laws enacted by Congress. They're appropriately funding to enforce these laws. If you don't like what ICE is doing, then go protest Congress. However, to say we disappeared people, no. We're arresting people that are in the country illegally and are public safety threat. We know exactly who we're going to arrest when we go look for them. We have a case file in front of us. We have all those facts. This is not disappearing people. This is a planned, targeted enforcement operation that we're doing. And
what data? Hold on. What are you talking about? Can we see the data? He's blowing her away with facts and information. Just blowing her away. And by the way, while arresting somebody, if somebody else there is an illegal alien too, they're not, oh, excuse me, I don't have my file with me today. They arrest them too, which is what they're supposed to do. Go ahead.
Is one of the reasons why these men and women are under threat every day. Not just the men and women in ICE, but their spouses and their children. They're not disappearing people. They're enforcing the law. And the data proves that 70% of these people are criminals.
Could we see the data? Could we see that data?
Absolutely. I have no problem sharing any data from her. I read it every morning.
And what data is she talking about, Rich? I don't even know what she's talking about. She doesn't either. She doesn't either. Can I see the data? He just disproved every point you made, Mika. The data's not going to help you. I can show you data. 300,000 unaccompanied minors missing. Can we see the data on how many women were sold into sex slavery? Oh, we don't have that data. Thank you, Joe. No? No. A lot of data we'd like to see. This presidency is more transparent than any. Certainly more than Biden. They were so busy protecting him from himself. They weren't transparent at all. But they didn't bother Mika, who was very, very friendly with those people. Very friendly with those people. All right, let's start cut 11. Go.
I just want to know what ICE agents out in the field right now, what they consider to be a criminal. Is that someone who has committed a crime like robbed a store? Or what about Narcisco Barranco, the father of 3 Marines who was cutting bushes at an IHOP before they took him off the street? I want to know. I want to know the data that you say you have about 70% of these people. Show it to us.
You send me the specifics of that case, and I'll run down what the specifics of that case are. You may not know all the facts around that case.
I may not. I certainly don't. That's why I'm asking you.
Well, let me tell you, look, right now, I see on the show this morning, you have Governor Healy talking about ICE doing enforcement operations at a church. Mm-hmm. False. Didn't happen.
They were parked there. They did not do an operation there. She said they were parked in a public space legally.
But to say that, and to push that out there puts fear in the immigrant community. So let me tell you what's happening.
That puts fear in the community. Right. To park the ICE agents' vehicle.
All right, let's stop a second. Where do you find illegal aliens, Mr. Producer? Home Depots and 7-Elevens, parks, parking spaces in their cars, churches. Where do you find them, America? Schools? He says we're trying to avoid those, but the fact of the matter is they're in the society. 20 million of them at one point. So where are we supposed to collect them other than where they are? I'm not even following this. So that's an objection. Then the other objection is unless they commit an additional crime, you're not to deport them. That's not what federal law says. It's not what federal law says. That's not what it's ever said. You don't get 2, 3, 10 bites at the apple. You're not even supposed to get the apple. We'll be right back. When was the last time you bragged about your wireless company? Like, did you know my wireless company gave away 1,000 American flags to deserving vets and forgave $10 million in veteran debt? Did you know my wireless company raised almost $500,000 to help prevent veteran suicide? In other words, when your wireless company is Pure Talk, there's a whole lot to brag about. You can even brag about the coverage you get with Pure Talk, a 5G network that is insanely fast, dependable, and secure. And you can definitely brag about how much money you save with Pure Talk. Unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Just $25 a month, saving the average family over $1,000 a year. It's time to switch to my favorite wireless company, Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin and save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, puretalk.com/LEVIN. Make the switch today. Pure Talk. Wireless worth bragging about.
Mark Levin, an unapologetic patriot and unapologetic constitutionalist. You can reach him at 877-381-3811.
One more for fun. Tom Homan whacking around Mika, on the Morning Joe show this morning. Cut 12, go.
I would argue that actually that the ICE vehicle parked outside a Spanish mass is a frightening sight, given what has happened in this country. I also, with respect, sir, thank you for the information that you have shared on this show, but we would appreciate all of the information. All of it. All of the data that you say you have.
I've done this show several times. Every time on your show, I speak with integrity, I speak with honesty, and I speak with facts. The bottom line is, because of all this false narrative, and you using the term disappearing people,
well,
is
that's
disgusting.
What's happened. That happened to the group that was sent to El Salvador.
U.S. citizens get arrested every day. U.S. citizens get arrested by police every day. Are they being disappeared? No, their laws are being enforced. They're being arrested. They're being put in detention because they committed a criminal offense.
Not like what you're doing.
Okay, let's stop for a minute. She's nasty and snarky, and she doesn't understand immigration law, not one iota of it, and she doesn't care. You can go online and read it. You can even go online and read what law firms have to say about it. You can read summaries of it. She can use a cheat sheet, anything she wants. Because what that'll tell you is that he's going by the book. Now, she keeps asking for all the data. I don't understand. Does she want to file on every single individual? But apparently privacy rights don't matter to her. Now, all that said, this isn't a criminal arrest of the sort that you have with American citizens. For instance, when we talk about warrants, often we're not talking about court-issued warrants. Sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. Warrants can actually be given by the bureaucracy here, or handed out that way in some instances. So she has no comprehension of what the immigration laws are. They're not a whole set of rules that create a whole set of obstacles to deport illegal aliens. Quite the contrary. The rules are actually quite liberal in terms of that sort of thing. But she doesn't get it. And so she interrupts him. She's snarky. She's acting like she's with the ACLU. You're here illegally. You present yourself as a person who's going to be deported. The question is how and when. You don't all of a sudden have a whole panoply of rights where you can drag on for 12 years until you can actually be removed. It doesn't work that way. It's not supposed to work that way. I just want to be abundantly clear about this, that she has no idea what she's talking about. Now, there's this Yasmin Ansari, who the other day said that she represents illegal aliens. They're part of her constituents. And you have a whole slew of members of Congress who conduct themselves this way. A whole slew of them. And I want you to listen to what she wants to do. And then I want to explain what it really means. Cut 13, again on CNN, go.
Looking ahead, you have another government shutdown looming. As you know, Democrats went along with Republicans to fund the government in the spring. Should they do so again now, or should they refuse and, in effect, shut the government down to block policies, well, like ICE that you're talking about here?
My view on this is that first of all, this is not our responsibility in the sense that the Republicans have control of all three branches. They have the presidency.
You know, it amazes me. You have a vote. He's asking you if you're going to shut down the government. And you're going to tell him yes. So it's not that the Republicans have control. You have a vote, and you're going to vote to do that. Now, I want to get into that in a moment. Go ahead.
Congress. So if they have a budget that they want to pass, they can always do so.
They need your votes. They need some Democratic votes, yeah.
Correct. And again, my view is unless they are going to roll back some of the egregious policies that they passed a couple of weeks ago, unless they're going to make sure that Medicaid isn't cut, unless they're going to take away funding from ICE, which they quadrupled in the last budget, then I do not intend to vote.
So unless they do what with Medicaid? Allow illegal aliens, she said, that's who she represents in many respects, to get Medicaid. She wants illegal aliens to get Medicaid. That's fraud. That's fraud. That's taking your tax dollars. Medicaid is teetering enough and giving it to foreigners who are here illegally. You know, I've always said, why bother making foreigners come to this country? Why don't we just send them all checks? Of course, it would break our back, but isn't that pretty much where the Democrats are on this thing? But you get my point here. She's saying unless you allow fraud to occur with Medicaid, because there are no substantive policy cuts on Medicaid, none. They're trying to limit the fraud. And unless you cut ICE's budget, in other words, to prevent the deportation of illegal aliens, her constituents, I'm voting to shut down the government. Now, what does that mean? And it's time Republicans get this straight. What does that mean? That means that programs that American citizens rely on will be shut down because she can't get funding for illegal aliens, making fraud legal. You see my point, America? So she wants to punish American citizens in order to blackmail the Congress and subsidize foreigners who are here illegally. That's what she's doing. This Yasmin Ansari. Go ahead. All right, that's it. You get the point, though? Raja Krishnamurthy. I've got to learn how to pronounce this guy's name because he's out of Illinois. I think he's running for the Senate there, and it's got more consonants than I can count. It's not a criticism. It's not an attack. I just can't pronounce it. He's another defender of illegal aliens, and they come up with any excuse possible not to deport people. Cut 14, go.
So far, they've begun their operations. We don't know the extent of it, except that of all think tanks, the Cato Institute recently did an analysis.
The Cato Institute is a radical libertarian organization. There's nothing wrong with it. That's what it is. I don't even know if they support immigration laws. I remember the days when the Wall Street Journal editorial page opposed any immigration limits. I've told you about that. They used to proudly call for a 5-word amendment to the Constitution, thou shalt have no borders, or something to that effect. Well, the Cato Institute isn't far from that, so he cites the Cato Institute. Go ahead.
Of ICE's arrests, and the vast majority of these arrests are of people who have not committed crimes.
So what? So what? They're here illegally. So what? They're not allowed to be here. Again, do you have to commit a violent crime in order to be deported? They don't even believe in that, half these people. But that said, you're here illegally. See how they're dumbing it down? You see how they're rewriting the law without effectively rewriting the law, but they want to rewrite enforcement. So if you're here illegally, one of 20 million people who came here illegally, and you didn't commit an additional crime, you should be able to stay. This is backdoor amnesty by undermining the enforcement of our immigration laws, that is deportation. That's what it is. That's what they want. Whether it's a parking lot outside a church, whether it's a Home Depot, whether it's a school, wherever it is, leave these people alone. Alone. If they haven't committed violent offenses, additional crimes, and on top of violating our federal immigration laws, a misdemeanor, they shouldn't be deported. So you see, every obstacle imaginable is being thrown out there. Go ahead.
Appears to be an effort to meet Stephen Miller's...
Shut up, you idiot. I don't even want to know how to pronounce your name. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
When was the last time you bragged about your wireless company? Like, did you know my wireless company gave away 1,000 American flags to deserving vets and forgave $10 million in veteran debt? Did you know my wireless company raised almost $500,000 to help prevent veteran suicide? In other words, when your wireless company is Pure Talk, there's a whole lot to brag about. You can even brag about the coverage you get with Pure Talk, a 5G network that is insanely fast, dependable, and secure. And you can definitely brag about how much money you save with Pure Talk. Unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Just $25 a month, saving the average family over $1,000 a year. It's time to switch to my favorite wireless company, Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin and save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, puretalk.com/LEVIN. Make the switch today. Pure Talk. Wireless worth bragging about. You know how many numbers? Monday Night Football. You know what the audience was, Mr. Producer? Excuse me, Sunday night. 21.5 million. And we still muscled through. The lineup on Fox still muscled through. Let's see here. Yeah. The son of Hamas to the Jerusalem Post. The Qatar strike should have been done 2 years ago. Mossab Hassan Youssef tells the Jerusalem Post that targeting Hamas leadership in Doha sends a clear message there is no immunity for those who butcher civilians. Hamas claimed credit for it. Leadership, key targets of operation. Survived the attack. 6 others were killed. And again, I want to know if they survived the attack because Qatar tipped them off after we tipped off Qatar. Now, Youssef, whose father, Sheikh Hassan Youssef, was a founding member of Hamas, said Israel's action sends an unequivocal message. There is no immunity to those who kill innocent civilians, who butcher civilians. I'm quoting him. Take hostages, then blackmail a nation in an attempt to bring the Jewish people in Israel as a nation to its knees. When asked by the Jerusalem Post what the strikes could mean for the future of the hostages still in Gaza, Youssef argued the strike could actually improve prospects for a hostage deal by eliminating what he described as obstructionist brokers in Qatar. You see, here's the son of one of the founders of Hamas, and he and I are right on target here. Right on target here. He said, I don't think it's in their interest to harm the hostages. I think Israel did well by cutting this chain of brokers out of the hostage situation, meaning Hamas. The strike targeted Hamas leaders who were reportedly meeting in Doha to discuss the U.S. ceasefire proposal. Yeah, but the word had already come out that they weren't interested, and part of that proposal was 3,000 Palestinian criminals to be released. Would we do that, America? Youssef believes Israel now has a better chance of negotiating directly with Izz al-Din al-Haddad, whom he identified Hamas's military wing leader in Gaza. Haddad is directly responsible for the hostages, he told the Post. So why go through Qatar? Why not go through him directly? Now Haddad knows that if he's not going to seal a deal with Israel, he's going to be dead as well. So I think that the chances, in my opinion, are better dealing with him. The Green Prince, as they call him, I guess, also offered a scathing assessment of Qatar's role, suggesting the Gulf state may have secretly welcomed the end of its Hamas hosting arrangement despite public condemnations. He said Qatar is a small country, but they're very powerful, they're very influential. But they're the ones who were funding Hamas and hosting Hamas, so basically they take a huge part of the responsibility for October 7. He speculated Qatar found itself trapped by its Hamas guests. All he has to do is turn them over. All they have to do. He stated Qatar was possibly informed of the assassination attempt before. Well, we know that's true. At least the attempt was made. I wouldn't be surprised if Qatar just wanted this Hamas chapter on the Qatari soil to end this way, he says. But he says the fundamental problem extends beyond Hamas. There's a broader problem to deal with, what he termed Palestinian rejectionists who don't want Israel to exist. He said, after 2 years of war, I don't see that the problem is between Israel and Hamas. I think the problem is between Palestinians and Israel. We have an entire generation who are living in victimhood of self-inflicted trauma that is materializing as resistance. He called for the complete dismantling of Palestinian identity as a political movement. He said Palestine and Palestinians, his identity as a violent political movement must be disarmed completely. The more you tolerate it, the more it becomes aggressive. Now, this man's a Palestinian, of course. Very interesting, isn't it, Mr. Producer? Very interesting. We'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Associated Press, the Supreme Court granted an unusually quick hearing on whether President Trump has the power to impose sweeping tariffs under federal law, as they put it. Justices will hear arguments in November, lightning fast by the typical standards of the nation's highest court. Well, why do they keep saying that? We know why this is going on, because you have an appellate court that ruled that he can't, and so there has to be a decision made, and I've argued he absolutely can. Whether you like tariffs or not, that's not the issue. What's in the Constitution? Which brings me to Ken Griffin. Who's Ken Griffin? Ken Griffin is a fabulously successful financial guy. He's worth $50 billion, Mr. Producer. Wall Street Journal news article, Ken Griffin, Republican mega donors, Wall Street's loudest Trump critic. He's also kind of a weasel, to be perfectly honest with you. I remember when he was back in DeSantis, and then DeSantis got in some fights with the left and the media over things, where they said, oh, you're banning gay people and you're doing this, and which he wasn't doing, and Griffin kind of threw him under the bus. But that's not why I'm getting into this. Few on Wall Street are willing to publicly lob any criticisms of President Trump. Hedge fund manager Ken Griffin is an exception. The founder and chief executive of investing giant Citadel, who is worth an estimated $50 billion and is among the largest Republican donors, has repeatedly voiced disagreement with Trump's signature initiatives. Griffin has opined on everything from tariffs to mass deportations to the tax cuts and deficit impacts of Republican sprawling tax and spending legislation signed into law by Trump. This is Wall Street Journal writing like this. Griffin doesn't sound like much of a conservative to me, does he? To you, Mr. Producer? No. On Sunday, Griffin co-wrote an opinion article in the Wall Street Journal opposing Trump's attacks on the Federal Reserve and on the credibility of official economic data that culminated in the firing of the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Quote, the president's strategy of publicly criticizing the Fed, suggesting the dismissal of governors and pressuring the central bank to adopt a more permissive stance toward inflation carries steep costs. He wrote with Professor Anil Kashyap of the University of Chicago's Business School, which I think is where he's from. These actions raise inflation expectations, increase market risk premiums, and weaken investor confidence in U.S. institutions. Griffin's words are staid compared with other political commentators, but they amount to perhaps the most outspoken critique from a business leader in Trump's second term. Okay. This guy has massive wealth. As I understand it, he bought up many properties on the Atlantic Ocean and West Palm Beach. He's building perhaps a 100,000 estate, 100,000 square foot estate. I think I read that somewhere. If it's not true, so be it. He has money and he likes money. And he outbid everybody else in purchasing a first edition of the United States Constitution, Mr. Producer. Now I'm jealous, right? Now I'm really jealous. But here's the problem. He hasn't read it. Ken Griffin hasn't read it, or he doesn't understand it, or he chooses to ignore it. You spent all the money, which probably was peanuts, Mr. Griffin, to you, to get a first edition of the Constitution. Why don't you read it? Now, after you read it, I want you to tell me where the Federal Reserve Board, all pieces of it, fit in the Constitution. Where is it? He argues that it needs to be an independent entity. Where are independent entities in the Constitution? There's 3 branches of government. The purpose is to have representative government. There is no representative government when you have independent agencies. Now, what about the Fed? The Fed is the worst of the independent agencies. Why? Number one, it has massive power. It sets monetary policy. In many respects, financial policy. It determines how much money is going to be out there in the marketplace, the reserves that banks have to have, and most of all, it determines the interest rate that you pay. Okay, and yet, it's not in the Constitution, and it's not a representative body. Now, the Board of Governors, I think there's 7 of them, They are nominated and confirmed by the Senate. But that's not where all the power is. They have 12 regional reserve banks. Listen to me. I did this on Sunday, not even having read Mr. Griffin's piece. But I was sick and tired of people treating the Federal Reserve like it's some kind of a godly entity. It's certainly not. Now, this was created in 1913 under Woodrow Wilson. And it got bigger in 1933 and 1935 under Franklin Roosevelt, so you know the mindset already. But for all those years up to 1913, we did not have a Federal Reserve system. The Constitution gives Congress the power to create a currency and coin and so forth, and that's it. Nobody else. Could you imagine the framers of the Constitution saying, we ought to have an independent agency that makes all these determinations about the economy? Well, look, Mark, there's the Board of Governors, but it's not just the Board of Governors. I just mentioned to you 12 regional so-called reserve banks. They're private banks. Private banks. The boards of directors of those banks are private citizens. Some of their bankers, some of their non-citizens, non-bankers. There's a statutory process. And they elect a president. 2/3 of the directors, according to the federal statute, elect the president of these regional reserve banks. But the presidents are private sector individuals, too. So what's the problem with this? Number one, the appointments clause. I would encourage Mr. Griffin to take a look at that. These people are not appointed. That is, they're not nominated by the president or confirmed by the Senate. And yet they have enormous power. Why? Because they have another thing that they created in addition to these reserve banks, in addition to this board. It's this Federal Marketing Committee. Now, this Federal Marketing Committee has a lot of muscle. A lot of muscle. Not just to collect data and all the rest of it, but this Federal Marketing Committee actually determines among other things, the interest rates. For the board, for the reserve banks, they create it. They're made up of private citizens. And it's 5 members, I believe, of the Board of Governors, and then members from these banks. Always the member president of the New York Bank. And then these other banks who rotate in and out of these 12 regions. And so almost none of these people are actually nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate. These are private people. That's number one. Number two, under federal statute, the president can't remove any of these private people from these positions, and he can only remove the members of the Board of Governors with cause. With cause, under federal statute. Again, that violates the Appointments Clause. The president should be able to fire anybody who's working in the executive branch, but then that's number three. He says, well, they're not really in the executive branch. They're independent. Okay. Congress cannot delegate this kind of power to an independent entity. If it can delegate this kind of power to any independent entity. So the entire Federal Reserve System is unconstitutional. You might say, well, who is going to ensure that we have sound money, right, Mr. Griffin? Not the Federal Reserve. That seems to be something they don't do. They monetize debt. It seems to be what they do. And they don't, Milton Friedman said what we really ought to do is get rid of the Federal Reserve and have a computer program that will put in the data that needs to be put in and make determinations for us. But he also pointed out, he became very famous also from the University of Chicago, a economics professor there, and another. And he wrote a famous book, and I think it was 1965, but in the 60s, pointing out that it was the Federal Reserve Board that created the worst recession followed by a depression, the Great Depression, because they tightened money, significantly increased interest when they should have loosened money. There was not enough liquidity in the system, and reduced interest rates. Instead, they choked the economy when it needed to be nurtured. The Federal Reserve made a horrible mistake then. It made a horrible mistake when it monetized the the Obama debt, we want to monetize the massive so-called Inflation Reduction Act, ironically, which created inflation, that climate change bill. It's made a lot of mistakes, as it is right now, not lowering interest rates. So, Mr. Griffin, you're dead wrong, and I would encourage you to actually read that Constitution that you paid so much for. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, America, I think these publishers ought to get together, and when one of my books is coming out, my friends, they should tell, wait a month. Either a month before or a month after. Just tell them that, because one of my friends, I really love Tim Scott. There's nobody nicer than Tim Scott. And for a politician, I think he's one of a handful. And so I feel guilty all the time. So I wanted Tim Scott to come back. He's got a fantastic new book. It's called One Nation, Always Under God, Profiles in Christian Courage. It's a fantastic book, Senator. Please tell everybody, why did you decide, of all the books, why was this important to you? And congratulations, it's a fairly new marriage. What is it, 6 months old, something like that? It's very new.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, very much. Yes, my marriage for a little over a year. It has been a very, very big blessing from God. I will say, Mark, without any question, one of the reasons why I wrote the book now is I realized that an America without faith is an America in decline. It's one of the reasons why President Donald J. Trump endorsed my book. And the only book that I know that was more popular than my book was your book. And you can get both of our books at Amazon.com right now.
Well, your book is really quite fascinating. Tell everybody, first of all, when you came to faith and why you felt explaining it in this book was so important.
You know, for me, growing up in a single-parent household, mired in poverty, the one thing I wondered is if I had any real mission in life, if was there purpose in my life. And I found for me that the gospel of Jesus Christ radically changed my life from a kid who almost dropped out of high school to becoming a United States Senator, because I was blessed with a mother who believed that faith was the key and prayer would unlock doors. And I wanted to tell the story from generation to generation of amazing Americans who stood the test of time and stood in the gap for other Americans. I think about William Lloyd Garrison. He was in the media. He had a promising, prosperous business. He was an abolitionist who almost lost his life because he felt called by God to do the right thing and to stand up for those who could not stand for himself. I think about Jim Lovell, Apollo 13 astronaut who just died less than a month or so ago. Lost because all of the equipment was breaking down in outer space, 200,000 miles away from Earth. He prayed, found peace, and then which allowed his brain to kick in and to find the solutions while oxygen was running low that saved the lives of all the astronauts that were with him. Or how Dorothea Dix got enamored with changing lives, especially those who were mentally unstable. She went from, back in those days, they called them insane asylums. She went after one after another, and she decided to change the course of how we could restore dignity and respect to those who are struggling with mental illness. And I thought to myself, over 100,000 Americans in the last 12 months have lost their lives to overdoses, 70,000 to fentanyl. Restoring hope and dignity to those who are struggling is a story of Dorothea Dix and her generation, or Eddie Rickenbacker, a World War II ace pilot who found himself in a plane wreck floating in the middle of the sea and saved their lives over 20-plus days while floating, of the men who were also in the plane crash as well. So story after story after story speaks to what makes America exceptional. It is the faith-filled Judeo-Christian foundation that is the marvel of the world. It is the purest definition of American exceptionalism. You can read my book, One Nation Placed Under God, today by going to Amazon.com and getting your copy.
You know, Senator Scott, to listen to Tim Kaine say that our rights come from government and not God was pretty horrible, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Nothing could be further from the truth. And our own birth certificate, our Declaration of Independence, our founding fathers made it crystal clear, Mark, that our rights, our intrinsic value comes from a creator upon high and not a government down low. There could not be a greater distinction between those who believe that government is God and those who understand that the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords is alive and well, and we are blessed by a nation that acknowledges that.
Mm-hmm. You have a United States senator who doesn't even know what the heck's in the Declaration of Independence and then compares it to Iran? Maybe this is how they think on the other side. Maybe this is the problem, no?
This is a major problem in our country, and this is why we must stamp out socialism and stupidity everywhere we find it. We have to take a strong stand. I go back to Proverbs 31:8, stand up for those who can't stand for themselves. It also means we have to stand up against those who would manipulate and poison the well of millions of Americans across this remarkable country. And that means standing for truth like you do every single day. You are clear as a bell. You are powerful in the way you provide the information, and you are defiant against the foes and the opponents that would call you down. And that is the power we need for this resurrection, so to speak, the revival we need, the resurrection of those who believe that America is on its last leg, and the revival that encourages the soul. We need both here in America, and I'm thankful that you are doing your part every single day.
You're very, very kind. If you have to go, I understand. Do you have a minute to hang on? I want to ask you about this South Carolina mafia I have there. You know, I met Trey Galley. I never talked to him before last week with his, but I really liked him like I like you. So
he's a smart man.
Hang in there if you can. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
Well, you heard him. I'm Mark Levin. My guest is Senator Tim Scott. Outstanding book. You should grab it at Amazon.com, any bookstore. One Nation Always Under God, Profiles in Christian Courage. This is a book that Senator Tim Kaine needs to read. Tim Scott, so you're real good friends with Trey Gowdy and likewise, and Lindsey Graham and likewise, and so forth. That's not always the case in these various states, is it? And yet you guys get along great.
It is not. We have found ourselves in a great position where we have learned to agree to disagree without always being disagreeable. Sometimes you don't see eye to eye on some of the issues, but we do trust each other. And at the foundation of healthy relationships, I believe, is trust. I also think that consistently, the vast majority of the time, you have to see from the same prism. And that's why I love Trey Gowdy. He and I have written a book together, a New York Times bestseller book a number of years ago. But we see the issue of crime and Israel. We see it from the same prism. And I love the way that as a former prosecutor, he dissects the cases 8-0 on death row. He is the kind of prosecutorial mind. He has the kind of mind that we lean on for things about the law. And I am an entrepreneur, so we have complementary skill sets that serves our state and hopefully the nation better as we find ourselves working together. As iron sharpens iron, we both get a little better.
I found it to be very open. In other words, about his life, about what he's done, and so forth and so on. Very likable. And look, I don't always agree with Lindsey, but I find him to be the same way. He's just very easy to talk to. Pretty much, he'll tell you anything. Same with you. Is that a South Carolina thing?
Well, I think it's in our water. We both, all three of us, support the Carolina Gamecocks, and the Clemson Tigers are pretty darn good this year. It does say something about our ability to tell the truth as we see it. But Lindsey Graham, he's a powerful force on the foreign affairs topics. He's really strong, clear, easy to understand, and he is fire on the topics he cares about. Mm-hmm. And I find that refreshing. He and I get along really well. We have different voting records on some topics, but I love his passion and his desire to serve the American people because of the voters in South Carolina. Frankly, President Trump's endorsed it.
3 men from the Deep South, very faithful Christians, and yet you couldn't find bigger Israel supporters than the 3 of you. What's that all about?
I think it comes right out of the good gospel. Psalms 122:6, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and those who do will prosper. And I also think it's common sense and in America's best interest. Anyone who understands the intimate relationship between the United States of America and Israel understands why it's common sense to support Israel. They're not just a country where we send $3+ billion of security assistance. This is a country that if you like your Wi-Fi, thank Israel. If you like GPS, Israel has something to do with it. The coordination, the collaboration, and the think tank between our 2 nations has made the world a better place to live. I will say it clearly. When I've been to Israel, sitting down with leadership, the one thing I walk away with is this passion for protecting their nation, but a compassion for people all across the world. And it is hard to deny that ethos that comes from faith, that Judeo-Christian faith that bubbles in both countries, impacts how we treat even those we oppose. And when you see days as we have in the last 48 hours, Israelis being attacked at bus stops, you understand their objective of eliminating the threat completely. You look at October the 7th, 2023, unprovoked attempt at a genocide. You understand completely why we stand shoulder to shoulder or back to back with Israel. We understand suffering and pain and misery, but we also understand when you're the most powerful force for good on the planet, you stand with your allies. I think it's biblically sound, but I also think it's very practical as a nation to support those nations that support you.
You're a good man, Tim Scott. You're welcome anytime. The book is One Nation Always Under God, Profiles in Christian Courage. I strongly encourage you, go to Amazon right now, Amazon.com, any major bookstore. And God bless you and be well, my friend.
Thank you very much for your friendship. I look forward to being back with you on the air another day. God bless.
You got it. You got it. I don't see the calls here, Mr. Producer. Did we send any or no? Okay. All right. He's something else, isn't he? He is, number one, always full of joy and energy. Always full of joy and energy. And I'm finding this whole crowd from South Carolina. And that's kind of the way these guys are. Kind of the way they are. And very positive-minded is what I would say. Now, I'm from Philly. That's not the way we are. It's not the way I am. No, we can be. Don't get me wrong now. Hello. Don't get me... By the way, how do you like those Phillies, Mr. Mets fan? How do you like that? Do you know what's going on or not really? Okay, I don't know how they pulled that one off the other night. 1-0. And, but that was pretty good. But you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. That was pretty good. Right? You won by, what was it, 3 or 4? Well, the Eagles won by the skin of their teeth, too. They're going to have to toughen up. And then that game with Buffalo, that was unbelievable. Did you see that game? Now, after Life, Liberty, and Levin, of course, I turned that on. And look, I like Baltimore. I like Buffalo too. But for years we went up to Baltimore from the Virginia area, and I like the Orioles. They kind of suck this year. It's too bad. But I have nothing against the Ravens. But God, they should have won that game. Now Henry's a tremendous running back. He dropped the ball, well, it was knocked out of his hands actually, which is too bad. But he's always going to be great, and that's going to be a great team. But I got to say, the Bills, their quarterback, that was a hell of a game, and that's what matters in the end. All right, let's take a call here. Well, hold on there. Let me pull this up. Oh, you don't think I watch sports? Everybody knows I watch sports, don't they, Mr. Producer? But not when my show's on, for God's sakes. Exactly. DVR. All right, I can't pull it up. Who do you got there, Mr. Producer? XM Satellite, Greg in Liberty, Kentucky. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Mark. Hey, I am a Chief Master Sergeant. I mean, a chief, not an E9, retired U.S. Air Force. And your entire show has just hit everything. So I got everything from the illegal aliens to Hamas to the Constitution as it pertains to the military. But my call started with the illegal aliens.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your service, by the way.
It was a privilege. My entire family has served since the Civil War.
It's amazing.
And including my son.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of got me sidetracked there because I'm fixing to have to bury my dad. But,
I'm sorry.
When it comes to unlawful orders, that is the only time that an enlisted member can disobey an order, and not only disobey the order, but place the officer under restriction. Arrest and restrict in the military is completely different. All right? So, this is the deal. All the sanctuary cities, every one of them, the police chiefs on down, they are guilty of not only, at best, aiding.
Well, you make a great point. Yeah.
At worst, it is it's treason. Depending on.
Yeah, I don't know about treason. I mean, that means we got to take them out and shoot them if they're found guilty. So I don't typically go there. But I'll tell you what it is. It's unconstitutional. So you're right on that. That is, you can't have a sanctuary city or state that claims we are not going to comply with federal law. I thought we fought a civil war over that, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
I'm sure we did. And nobody talks about this. Man, I got to go. I appreciate you, and I'm very, very sorry about your father. God bless you and your family, and our prayers go out. You know, like I say, every caller has a life, family. These people who are murdered, they have lives, family. There's a story behind everything. There is. You heard Senator Scott just there. And you got to respect human life. And you got to deal with those who don't. Who don't. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The EMS program, I want to congratulate Israel and their prime minister for defending themselves and their people. That's what a country's supposed to do. That's what the President of the United States believes. Regardless of all the other static, that's what they did. Let's go to Edward, Grand Junction, Colorado, the great KNZZ. Edward, go!
Sir, my name is Edward Warners. I was wanting to make the comment.
Because you're a practicing, believing Christian. And that's beautiful, Edward. Thank you very, very much. You take care of yourself. Gerald, Houston, Texas, XM Satellite, go!
Hey, Mark, it's an honor talking to you. I love Brother Rush, and you've taken up where he left off. I would consider myself a Levinite. I am a Judeo-Christian minister, and
Beautiful.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
And if I'm wrong, you can correct me. But I've been very frustrated with the nomenclature that the mainstream media uses, and I've always debated that there's no difference between communism and socialism. That it's the same thing. Socialism sounds sweet. Communism is very ugly. We need to call.
Well, let me tell you what Marx said. Marx said socialism is the step before communism, and what he meant by that was socialism is in fact an economic ideology, but he says it's dressed up in democracy, whereas communism is cultural, it is societal, it's economic, it's all-encompassing, it's all devouring, and it doesn't need to dress up as anything. So there is a difference, a slight difference.
Well, excellent, but I see cultural Marxism out there, and
right.
I deal with it, and it's, white privilege, all this critical theory that applies to everything from sex to marriage to, it's all cultural Marxism.
True.
But I really appreciate you, and I listen
appreciate
to you every
you,
day.
my brother.
I tell other people.
Thank
you. Are
you.
True brother.
God bless you, man. I'm going to tell you something. When I'm in a room of Christian pastors, this is true, Mr. Producer. When I go to these Kufi events, I feel like I'm at home. I really feel like I'm at home. Because they look at the Bible in so many ways the way I do. And they're loving and they're embracing. That's what I find. We're attached at the hip. We Jews and Christians. It's just the way it is, baby. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine. Yes, the men and women in Israel. Yes. The men and women in the United States. What would the world do without us? Seriously. Thank you. God bless you. And I'll see you tomorrow. Be well.